Okay, once again, welcome to the programming session number 2, HND 53 weekend badge. This lesson is conducted on March 13th, 2021, Saturday. Okay, let's start the session. Um, Last week, 1 second please, I will keep your participant list so I can see. Okay, last class, last Saturday, when we were doing the physical session, I started programming for you and I did the basics, right? I did the basic parts of programming. Then we were able to discuss one main thing, which was what do you call that? It is called the algorithm. Algorithm is a finite number of set of instructions in order to take a specific input and convert it into a meaningful output, step by step, and finite number of steps, right, to solve a problem actually. Okay, an algorithm can be represented using a pseudocode, um, or it can be even represented using a flowchart. So for this program we are learning pseudocodes, right? So this slide we already went through, children, so no need to again and again discuss. So we learnt about common programming terminology. We learnt, so a computer program is nothing but a set of instructions written using a computer program to do a meaningful job. So we discussed about this, right? We discussed about that. So we took many examples and we discussed about this. Some types of programs I showed you last week. These were programs built by myself, and some term, this is a meme anyway. So developers and testers, we will talk about that. Programmer versus software engineer, I think we discussed about that, both of them. In a nutshell, if you take a programmer and a software engineer, software engineering is a higher ranking job than a programmer. And if you take the knowledge and the exposure to the problem and the technologies, if you take software engineer, is in ahead of a programmer. You should understand that, please. Okay, I hope you understood, and I think you went through these things. End of my recap part. Now I will ask you questions. Do you have any doubts at that time period? If you do have any doubts, talk to me, please. Right, okay. Further, software development life cycle, we talked about this is a big lesson anyway, children. Last week we talked about the planning, we talked about analyzing, and we talked about, I think, designing, or analyzing, up to analyzing. Can
Up to
some
analysis, sir.
up to analysis? All right, okay, Yunus, thank you. Right, so within 2-3 sentences I'll tell you what do you mean by this planning and analysis. When you take and when you want to develop a system, or when you want to develop a software in a ad hoc manner means without having a plan, just doing a system. That is why we use the word ad hoc. So we usually do not do development work like that. Whenever you want to have a system developed properly, you will follow that according to a particular number of steps or stages. Or software development can be divided into steps or stages. Those are the main, or the important stages are the ones that you see in the inside the circles. So first one, if you take the analyzing means understanding the problem, or uh, thoroughly studying an existing problem. Why we say it is as a problem? Because, for example, those days you had a lot of, even nowadays we have, but all those days we had uh, manual systems. Manually, records were kept on books and people were writing on ledgers and things like that. Then these kind of things needed to get computerized. So the study of the existing system, how this system is functioning, what input do you give, how the records are taken in, if you want any outcomes, how are they producing the outcomes, these kind of things you had to thoroughly study before you start developing a system. So in the analysis, what we basically do is we try to understand the problem, what the exact requirement of the client, or the person who is giving us the system, what exactly he or she needs to get developed. Actually, at the end of the analysis, the outcome of the analysis, you can see there, it is called the systems specification report. System specification report is the outcome of the analysis stage. Okay. The second document that you see is SDD, which means systems design document, which will be the outcome of designing stage. Now we're going to talk about the design next, after analyzing. So I'm going to pause the recording now. Okay. Now in today's lesson, let us talk about the design. Okay. If you take if you take writing a Java program, last week I demonstrated a small program you can see in the class. I think we took some numbers and did a small calculation, something like that we did last week. um, if you take developing a program, which means writing the code and doing the designing part, if someone asks which part will be difficult actually, or which part is more challenging, actually the designing part is challenging. Okay, challenging, because the reason is the design means now in the analysis stage you come up with the system's requirement or specification, what exactly the user needs. Now you need to come up with a plan, exact plan, or a way of meeting those requirements, how those identified requirements can be met. Okay, so that's the reason, um, why we make use of this, right? Why we make use of this, right? um, right, that's fine. 1 second please. Right, all right, we'll continue. Now let's talk about again design, right? So please remember, solving the problem, giving the solution to the problem is the designing stage. So compared to the code and implement stage, designing stage is little bit complex or little bit advanced or little bit uh, tough to do than code and implement. Actually, once you learn the design, I'm going to teach you what is design only, then we're going to learn how to do software design. So actually the next slide is about design here, software design, and then we will come back to this slide. So if you take a look at it, here you can see that even the picture is there like that. So you can see here coming up with the solution for the problem. So that is what is called the software design. So when we are learning how to write the pseudocodes, we're going to learn how to design the software. Developing a detailed step-by-step approach to the problem. So in algorithm also we have that step-by-step approach, as well as it has the finite number of steps. Here also we're going to follow those exact steps, step by step we're going to follow, and we're going to fix the problem, or we're going to solve the problem. So those steps are really important, and don't forget the sequence also. Last week I think I showed you how to wear the shoe, right? There are 3 steps, but the steps are really important. Put the socks, put the shoe, tie the lace. So if you think about an easy algorithm like that, it's really important to follow the steps and follow them in the proper order. Final one can be implemented using a design tool such as pseudocode, flowchart, or an activity diagram. So for this program, in the programming course, we are not doing activity diagrams, but when you come to advanced subjects like application development, you can start doing using activity diagrams. Okay, activity diagrams are more closer to flowcharts. Okay, and anyways, pseudocode and flowchart I will be teaching you. Okay children, that information is enough. So coming up with the solution for the problem, right? So I will shortly discuss about these 2 things, and I will move forward then. That is about the design. Code and implementing means, now one more thing I'll tell about the design and I'll move. Think about a 10 perch land, building a house. Before building the house, you hire an architect, ask him to give you a plan. You say that in 5 perch land the building should come, and the house requirements you're going to say. Do you need a garage? Do you need how many stores? Store means how many stories of the building, how many rooms, how many bathrooms, how many kitchens, etc. Once you say all the requirements, and in 5 perch land. They will come up with the all the things, directions and the elevations and everything, and they will give you a nice design which will satisfy your requirements. And with the design, if you are not happy now these days, they will show you 3D projection of it as well. 3D projection means using AutoCAD. They do the drafting, then do there is a in 3D Max or Maya you can do something called box modeling, where the walls and all can be virtually built, and it can be textured, light can be applied, and it can be rendered means outcome can be taken, and you can get a virtual tour around the virtual house. So the camera can move across the corridor, then it can go to the rooms, and it can see the ceiling, everything you can see, so the customer can get a better picture of the house, how it's gonna come. So that is what is called the design. Actually, that's called the design. Before we do the real product, we do, but it is not always the prototype or the sample or the model. It is a solution for the problem, right? That day I told you the plan is going to be, maybe it is drawn on a A4 sheet, it can be drawn on a A4 sheet, but it will depict everything, right? How many rooms, how many windows, how many doors, etc. Okay, having said that, let's move on to the code and implement part. mm, Coding is the third step. Actually, coding, it's straightforward. Using a computer programming language, you're going to implement the design. Now we are talking here about the software engineering or software designing, so that can be expressed because the computers are capable of understanding not English, they are capable of understanding computer programming language. So you need to write using a computer programming language such as Java or Python or C sharp or what else, PHP. Like one of these programming language you have to use and write, then it will do the job. Okay, so what you can do is you can do the coding part. So using one of your chosen language, and you can convert the design into a working program, or a program which is implemented in computer executable instructions. So that stage, that process is called coding, converting the design into a working program written using a computer programming language, which is known as the coding. Even you can call it that term as programming. Okay, so that is why it is called the implement. Please make sure this word implement here does not mean the finished software you put it in the customer's computer or in the working place uh, for operation. That is not the meaning of the word implement. This is code beans converting the design into the working or workable program. Okay, that's the note, or that's the information I want to tell you about the code and implement. Next one is testing. Okay, so testing means in in real life also, when you fix something, or when you first time when you build something, you need to make sure two things, right? First of all, one thing that we have to make sure that is whether it is meeting the user's requirement, because in the analysis stage we came out, or we found out what sort of problems need to be solved, or what sort of requirements are there for the client. Then how it can be solved, in the design we came up with a plan, then we coded that, we converted that plan into a working program. Now we need to test that exactly the built program is satisfying all the users requirements. That is the number one thing which you do under testing. So we need to make sure whether the built program is uh, what do you call is solving all the clients problems, or it is giving solution to all the problems which were originally it was there. That is one reason. Number two, when you build software or when you build programs, there can be errors can be there. We call them as bugs. So during the testing process we can fix the bugs as well, so existing bugs can be fixed. So those are the things that you do for testing. Okay, the next one is last one actually is called the review and maintenance. So make sure students after testing is done properly, you will be actually putting it in the a real customer's workplace, actually, in order to work you put it into operation. So real users will be involving with your software, and they will be doing the work that need to be taken out of the software. Now let's say we implemented this system in 2015. Now it is 2021. So after 5+ years, users requirements can change. Users requirements can change. So when the users requirements are changing, what happens is the system needs to be modified. That is one reason. Number two, as I told you, a software can have bugs. A software can still have bugs. Bugs means hidden errors can be there. So after you implement the system, after 6 months, when the user tries to do something, that occasion did not occur previously, but now it is occurring. Now you are coming across a problematic situation, or the program is crashing, or it is giving you a error. So what you need to do is you need to do modifications, you need to do improvements. So review and maintenance is the stage where you find and remove existing bugs, and you introduce new improvements to the system, to the existing system. If you want to make any improvements, if you want to make any modifications, that is the stage where you introduce them, that is the stage where you include them. That is called the review and maintenance stage. Hope you understand that. And children, please understand, when you do the review and maintenance stage, it is always you go from analyzing stage, and you go all the way with all the other steps, which means you need to again understand what the program is, how the existing part is working, and you need to come across the what is the new requirement that need to be introduced, how that new requirement can be solved, how that new requirement can be implemented. You have to have a solution, which is the design. Once you do have the design, once you have the solution, you need to implement it using real coding, which is a computer programming language you have to use. Once that part is also done, you need to test along with the other features the newly introduced feature. Is that properly working? Is that properly solving the requirement? Is that properly addressing the new requirement of the customer? Then if it is so, fine, that stage is also completed. Then the system can run for some other time. Then after another 5 years, or after another 2-3 months, another bug can be spotted, then that can be fixed. Or if a new requirement comes, then that can be introduced. So likewise, this goes step by step by step by step. So that is why we call this one as a software development life cycle. Shortly we call that one as SDLC. Okay. So after the class is finished, I will be uploading, there's a document called SDLC doc, which I have downloaded notes, and I have created a lengthy note. Lengthy note means enough note is there under software development life cycles. And software development methodologies also there, like there can be different methodologies how you can do these steps. Are there basic steps, but there are steps called waterfall model, V model, spiral model, agile model, prototyping. Now I mentioned 5. So these are different ways where software development companies or firms can develop software. So that is what I wanted to mention there. Okay, I'll pause the lesson for 1 minute and ask your feedback. In the assignment, directly this will not be asked for you to write any notes, but this knowledge will be greatly help you to do the development work in your software. Okay, let's move on. So this is what we discussed: software design. We finished it, and of course we finished the other stages as well. And I said I will be giving you a document. So actually I will be uploading it here. This is your Edmodo class. If anybody didn't join, please join. So in this one, children, this is our class, right? So HND 53 programming weekend. So in this one there is a section called folders. In the class materials I'm maintaining, So you can see last week slide and today's slides are there, as well as the Unity script. I'm going to upload the SDLC here, so you can get it now itself. mm, Seems it's okay, children. I just uploaded it here. You can get it downloaded after my class. Get it downloaded. Okay, it will be there forever, right? So permanently it will be there. You can download it. So let's proceed. Renijan Puta, do you have a doubt? You are raising your hand. Renijan, do you have a doubt?
No.
Okay. Where is it? Right, let's continue. So this part is also done. SDLC document is given. The PDF version I have given, so you can make use of it. So now we're going to learn about the pseudocode. So these things are the ones that we're going to write, children. As I told you last week, we have a time frame of 30 hours for the course. So I'm going to spend less time on pseudocodes. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on Java programming, so you can do the work very fast, because in the final assignment only one pseudocode you have to write and one flowchart you have to draw. Anyway, for that is for the task 1. Task 2 is going to be a lengthy task. Actually 4-5 Java programs you will have to build, and they will be in a not very easy ones and not very tough ones, moderate ones. So in order you should be able to do that one, so I have to pay more attention on that part. Okay, so which is developing the software part. Okay, right. So let's quickly work on what is pseudocode, right? What is pseudocode? Let's put this one. Got it. Right. When you say the word pseudo, right? Pseudo means false. I think last week did I mention about an apple? Don't know whether I did or not, right? So pseudo means false. Okay, false means not real. So pseudo code, so not real code. So this one is going to be expressing your algorithm in a more technical way, or not like spoken English. It's going to be a little bit more technical, so it will be easy for people to, or the developers to read and understand, and it is easy for you to convert a pseudocode into a computer program. I will show you a sample after the pseudocode. I think last week I did one. So pseudocode is a step-by-step written outline of your code that gradually transcribe into the programming language. Transcribe means translating. Okay, translating, converting. So transcribing into a programming language. So pseudocode you can't run, but a real program you can run. It is not real programming code, that you need to understand. Pseudocode is not real, not a programming language. Of course, it's going to be some technical words going to be there, some keywords. Technical word means keywords going to be there, some structure is going to be there, as well as indentation, white spaces, alignments, those kind of things we're going to follow, just like we do in a real computer program. But it's not real computer program. It's very closer to a real computer program. Then it says it has structure and uses keywords. Okay, has structure and uses keywords. So now, before we go to the do's and don'ts, right? So do's and don'ts itself we can talk here, right? Yeah, we'll stay in this slide. Meanwhile, I'll start my NetBeans software as well. Okay, now let's create a program. Now since this is our first day I'm doing online session for you, I will have to create a project. So I'm going to hit next. I will teach you how to do this one. HND53. programming. Right, so let's create a new program. A demo app, it's called the demo app. Okay, now this is the third step, that is implementing part. Now let's take a look at the pseudocode first. Let me tell you the problem first of all, right? So let's say we need to display a word or a sentence uh, 25 times. Okay, so we need to display a word or a sentence 25 times. So a normal pseudocode, if you write pseudocode, okay, so you can say start. Every program that we start need to be finished also, so start and stop will be there. Then after we start, what we can do is we're going to start displaying the words. We can say display. So let's say we want to display HND53 programming. This is the word that we want to display. So I said 25 times, so you can use likewise. Now we have 5 here. So 1, 10, 15, 20, 25 instructions are there. So this is a lengthy program. Anyway, start the program. We say display in the screen output HND53 programming. Next line again says display HND53 programming. Likewise 25 times we are doing, and altogether we have 27 statements, this one and this one included. 27 steps we have. Okay, so I'm going to write another program to do the same thing. Okay, we can do another same thing, right? So start the program, stop the program. You can use control constructs. I'm going to teach you these things in the upcoming lessons. Just watch the demo, right? That is enough. You can use something called a count, and you can set it to 1, and you can use a control flow statement like while. You can say while the value of count is less than or equal to 25, do. You can say end while. So you can say display HND53 programming, and make sure you increment the count. Count the number of stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Maximum 7 steps. Actually, these are not steps like so. Around 5-6 lines of code I have written the program. This will produce the same output as this does. I will show you in the Java programming also. So what if you want to do that one 250 times? No worries, just put a 0 here. If you want to do 2500 times, no worries. 25,000 times, no worries at all. Okay, so that's why we say like that. Right, now because we wrote this pseudocode, let's see how it will be done in a Java program. So I'm using some shortcuts. Later I will be teaching these things. So first of all, we're going to use the old method. We don't have a display command, children. So in Java, we're going to say system.out.println, and you can say HND53 programming. Copy that, paste, 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 paste. 5 lines. 10. Oops, sorry. 15, 20, 25. Let's run this code. Right, so it's a big program. Shift F6. Now there you can see the output will come now in a second. Yeah, the output comes, and there are 25 lines of programming word is printed. If you are not sure, you count and see. Right, let's see whether we can do this one any better. Right, let's delete this coding and let's write it in an easy way. Int count is equals to 1. You say while count is less than or equal to 25. In Java we don't write anything called do, right? We say, so you say HND 53 programming. That's all the code. Now you can see how short this program compared to the previous one. Shift F6 does the same thing. Does the same thing, right? So if you change your mind and you want to go for 250 times, I can show you that also. So if you run like that, you can see 250 times it has got printed. So it's just a matter of changing a value here, and it is producing the output as we want. 250 lines of that work is happening just split of a second. So that's the power of programming if you use proper control structures and all. Now I don't want you to understand how to write a while loop. I want you to know that in pseudocodes also we can make use of these syntaxes. We can make use of these keywords. We can make use of this structure. Structure means you can see here indented. Code is indented. Then we are using keywords. For example, when you want an output, you say display. If you want it on a screen, if you want it on a paper, you will say print. Then if you want a value to be incremented, this is a computational instruction. When the loop wants to stop, you write the statement. When the program should stop, you write the statement. All those things are there in the Java program as well. For example, I'll keep it like this, children, for you to see. Side by side I can show. Yeah, I can show you like this. So start part, this is the line where the program will start in a Java program. When I teach Java, I will teach you this. What about the main method? Then when your counter set to be 1, that is set here, it is also there, but additionally you see a semicolon, hence you see there is a word called int. Those are requirements of Java programming language. I will teach you that one later in Java, not in pseudocode. When you are writing pseudocode, there is no int to be written, there is no float to be written. While is written like this. While in a pseudocode, if you like, you can write capitals also. No one will object. I am not writing capital letters because the language that we're going to implement this is going to be Java. If you see in Java, most of the words are written in simple letters, so that is why I'm following that standards. Okay, so everything is there. The system.out.println is the Java way of saying display command. So this is what is replaced using real code here. Count is assigned to count plus 1. Count plus plus, that's a short way of writing in Java. If you don't like it, you can write like this also, but Java developers, we don't write like this. This is not a standard way of writing it, so we write like this either, or we write like this. Increment operator we use. So that is how a Java program is built. I just proved it. 250 lines printing is nothing. Even 2500 lines I can print. See, it's done. 2500 times I did. So it's really easy to do, right? Let's continue. Keeping that program in our mind, let's continue what's happening, right? Pseudocode do's and don'ts. What you should follow, what you should do, what you should not do, right? First of all, do's we can do. Use control structures. Control structures means, children, earlier I told you, without using control structures, we wrote only the display command 25 times. So when you are doing programs, sometimes it is not practical to do something like, if you want to do a task for 5,000 times, you can't write 5,000 lines of instructions. Each line is small modifications there, means you can't write 5,000 lines of coding, and it's going to be a too bulky program and you won't be able to easily maintain that. So you want a short and a crisp program where you can easily do this, right? It has to be using control structures. So we're going to learn about control structures, like how to write if conditions. Then we're going to learn how to write loops. In pseudocode, I'm going to teach you if conditions, and for loops, I'm going to teach you while loop in pseudocode. But in Java, when you're writing if conditions, you will learn 3 types of if conditions along with switch statement. Then in Java, you will learn 3 types of loops: while loop, do while loop, for loop. So that is in the real programming I'm saying, right? Okay, so all these control structures you're going to learn, and you have more control structures like try catch. So you can write them. So if there is an error, how to handle the error. So that try catch is also available. Those are control structures. Then use proper naming conventions. Proper naming conventions. So rather than saying the word count here, if I took something like x or something, or p or something, then the program will be a little bit less readable. So when you have variables, you are storing information about an employee. You want to store information about an employee. See, you store the values like name, comma. These are the variables you can take. Address, comma, phone, comma, email. This information, text information you take. Then you take int age. You say float salary you can take. Okay, so this information you can simply take. Height, weight you can take if it's necessary, right? So here I have six information about, or data about, an employee. So importantly, you can have the employee number. So I am using and you know there are some important things on it. They are like, for you can take first name, last name. I think you can see, I will break from here and write again. So you can see I am following a type of naming conventions. For example, starting with a simple letter, starting the second word with a capital letter. These are called following camel cases. I don't leave spaces. Leaving a space is wrong. If I really want a, let's say I want the full name as well, I can have something like this. Instead of having a space, I can use a underscore. Okay, so all these things are naming conventions. We have to follow proper naming conventions. One more thing, names should be small, as well as they should be very easy to read and understand. They should not be ambiguous. And say the same set of information about the employee I'm storing, let's say for employee number N, for name NA, for address add, for TP. So likewise you say email. Okay, this is a bad naming convention. Int ag, float s for salary. So this is a bad naming convention. So in an assignment, this will not score your distinction. Previous one will do. So I'll go for the previous one again. We got this one. So you can have these kind of meaningful names created, and that is the naming conventions that we have to follow. Okay, use proper naming conventions. Then indentation and white spaces are key. So in the real code, you can see when we are typing, if we do not leave spaces in between, we are calling these things in Java as tokens. So if you don't have a space, it is an error. It's an error because computer does not know what this word is. So it's a must that you introduce white spaces. Keeping more than one is optional, but minimum you have to have one space in order to differentiate the tokens. And everywhere you can't leave spaces also. If you leave a space there, see, right? So it's here, if you leave a space, it's an error, right? So in a proper places you can leave spaces, and you can see here an empty line is left. So white spaces, tab key presses, these are white spaces. So what it does is improves the readability of the code. We can write the same code like this. I mean, I'm not going to do it, no idiot would do that. Still the program will work. In the same line you can write multiple instructions. Please never do that. It's a very bad programming habit, right? So don't do that. A good program always writes one instruction per line. Okay, one instruction per line. Let's continue. Indentation and white spaces are key. Keep it simple, keep it concise. Concise means clear, simple means it's not very difficult to understand. So this program is pretty simple to understand and pretty easy to do it. Okay, right? So this is the simplest way I did. You can do it in a very complex way also, right? Like I'll take an example and do it. I'll comment this one. Let's say we got three variables and you want to find the average, right? So int n1, comma n2 comma n3, and you want to find the average of this one, so you can say float. So you say some steps in tot is assigned n1 plus n2 plus n3. Then you say average is equals to total divided by 3f. Then you say s out average. I think I got some errors here, n1 into n3 and okay, we haven't given any values for this, so it is giving an error. N1 is assigned to 50, N2 is assigned to 40, N3 assigned to 60. So this is a small program I wrote, so don't worry about this code. This code can be written more simply, right? So the same code I'll show you how to write. Same code I'll show you how to do. So these 3 lines in Java you can write like this. You can make it easy, so you don't need the total here. You can simply put this. I'll show you how to do it. That's all the code. So here a lot of lines, same thing we can do it in a simple way. Okay, so this is not a pseudo code I am showing, this is a real code I am showing. So the same thing we can do it in a pseudo code, or we can do it in a flow chart, right? So what my point here is, you have to keep the program simple and very concise, easy to read and understand, right? Okay, right, so I don't want you to understand the code now. Java code no need to understand, because we didn't start learning Java. Okay, I just explained you what you should do in your pseudocode, and what you should not do. First of all, don't make the pseudocode abstract. Abstract word you will understand when you're doing research papers. You have conducted a huge research, but the entire research you will summarize in 250 words, and you will write an abstract. Anyone who reads the abstract, research abstract, will understand a good understanding of your, they will get a good understanding of what is your report research is about and what is your finding is about. So that's all. So if they want what are the detailed things, like what statistical things that you used, what data sets that you used, okay, how it was conducted, how long it took for you to do, what are the benefits, what are the disadvantages, what questions did you actually ask, and all the these details, if you want, you have to read the extended abstract, which is containing the full report. So don't make your pseudocode too simple. Watch this, right? If you want to write a program, let's say we want to write a program, to input 3 numbers from the keyboard and find and display the average. So I could give a question like this: write a program to input 3 numbers from the keyboard, find and display the average. So this question says what input to be given, from where it to be given, what output to be taken. So you write start. Any program you start, you can stop that. You're going to ask the user to input. I will teach you this, don't worry. Enter number 1, 1. Likewise you can do. So proper one I'm doing. So you can say, here you say find average, then you say display average. So if you take a look at this pseudocode, this is too general or too abstract, right? So don't be too generalized. So if you say find average, you again tell the computer how you find the average. I ask you to find the average. You are saying, okay, find the average. Take the number, find the average. Don't say find the average. You have to tell how it can be done, right? So to find the average, n1 need to be added with n2, and it is need to be added with n3, and the entire thing need to be divided by the number of numbers, which is 3. So you will get the average. And if you want a label also, say average is, and you can print the output like this. This is a correct way of writing the pseudocode. The previous one is not, right? Okay, so that is what I meant by that word, right? Okay, now it's time for us to start writing our pseudocodes. The very first pseudocode here is written like this, and I want you to understand every question that we give you, or every question I give you, will have what is the input, where are you giving that input from, it will be there, and what output is exactly needed. So by looking at the output what is needed, and with examining the what is the input that you have, you can think what process you need to do, what need to be done to convert that input into that output. So that is all about writing the pseudocodes now. So in order to get you started, and in order to get you familiarized with the pseudocodes, you can see these are the ways uh, pseudocodes I will explain you 1 2 3, like there are sample pseudocodes, each one will have a question and you will do. So when you finish an example, I will give you a task which will have, or which will follow the same pattern, but the question will be different. You will have to do small changes to get the output. Is that clearly understood? When you are writing your first program, you are learning the syntax, you are learning the keywords, you are learning the spacing, you are learning the indentation. Those are the things that you're learning from the pseudocode when you're writing the very first few pseudocodes, rather than the logics. That is why we have given you very simple programs, just adding two numbers or displaying your name, because it is not merely adding two numbers, it is about how to write a pseudocode correctly, what parts are there in a pseudocode, why we need to indent, why do we need to use keywords, what are the keywords we commonly use, what happens if you, in an input or in a print, if you use single quotes like this, they are called labels. When you want to output something on the screen as it is, simply you put this in single quotes, you simply put the label, so it will be printed. Okay, I think someone joined now itself. All right, so this is how it's going to be. Right, now quickly take your textbook. I'm going to pause the video. Now I'm going to continue, and I'm going to explain you each line of this code and what they are doing and how you can do it. Siraj, you want to tell something? Okay, students, I will explain the parts of this program. So try to understand when you're writing your programs now, you have to include these parts properly, as I'm mentioning now. Very first line, you can see it is a comment. In pseudocode also, we learn the habit of including comments, because a good comment will explain, describe, will give good instructions, and it will make the code easy to read and understand. And moreover, it will tell why the code was written in first place, why this piece of code was written, because the programmers, when you are writing programs, you have to maintain the code as well. By the time you are maintaining the coding, if the code especially has been written by someone else, if it is properly documented, if it is having proper comments in proper places, it becomes much easier for you to do your development work, as well as read and understand the existing coding. So without the comments, it will be a little bit difficult for you to read the code and understand. That's the reason why we introduce comments. Further, if you take the very first line here, after the comments are started from / back asterisk, then you write a small description about what the program is, then give a number or something, then asterisk, again /. That is a comment. In Java also you can code it as it is. Pseudocode also we are following, and we are learning that habit. There are other styles of comments in Java, but by the time we are learning Java, I'll do that. Then start the program. This is a command. Okay, it is an instruction. Learn that. It is a syntax. Every program must be started before working. So make sure you start the program at the beginning. So every pseudocode should start with this word start. Then according to this program, children, if you read this one, write a program or pseudocode to enter two numbers. Enter means input. Give. You have to feed the computer. Enter two numbers. You're going to give two numbers to the computer. Where are you giving the input from? From the keyboard. Instructions are very clear. right? So two numbers we need to accept from the keyboard. We need to give it to the computer so it can accept two numbers and it can do the work. Now see this. This is a calculator program. Now of course I can do it from the keyboard also. It is designed in such a way it can accept the keyboard inputs, plus it can input the mouse key presses. For example, if I want to multiply 45 by 2, I can do it by pressing the buttons and get the answer, right? So I can do that, or else I can type 45 multiplied by 2. I'm using the keyboard, pressing the enter key, getting the answer. So both does the same thing. So this has been done in such a way, but in a procedural program which runs on the command prompt, you won't be able to do that. Command prompt means something like this, okay? If you want to see the time and all the things, you can just type like that. If you want to see the date, you can type like that, right? If you want to change the color of the screen, you can type like this, right? So this is the command prompt where you can use this one, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to write programs which run on prompt like that. So one instruction per line, we are writing it. So that's what I just wanted to make sure that you understand, right? So here it's given from the keyboard. I think I missed something. I was explaining something, right? Right, let's do. Start input. Input is a word. You tell the user what to do. Input, right? Input. So you tell the user enter a number. So because input num1, I will be teaching this one soon. Now these are called data items. So input num1, which means this is a data item, or we also call this one as a variable. I will be teaching this one very shortly now. Enter number 1, right? Enter number 1. Then with this label, a number need to be typed in. That's what this means. And the number that you type, it could be any number, 5, 10, 100, 500, -5. The computer is going to remember that number in this location. It is a memory location, which is also called a variable. It can be replaced. This is going to be stored in a place called num1. Then only one number is not enough. We need two numbers to be accepted from the keyboard. Then we write another command called input enter number 2. Enter number 2. So we instruct the user, give the second number. So that number is going to be stored in the place num2. It's another place. Then we say total is assigned to num1 plus num2. Then this is a command that you do. Command means a small calculation we have to do. Then print is an output command. We say a label total is will be printed and the actual total will be displayed. I'm going to explain this one once again, don't worry. I'm going to make you understand this little bit more. So let's take a look at it like this. Let's take yeah, I got this. Let's assume that we're going to do, right, I'm going to draw on the screen. Let's assume, you know, computer program is just a set of instructions written using a computer programming language in order to do a task. So you can't write just start command, display command, stop commands. So if you want to do complex programs, if you want to do advanced programs, you need to know other functionalities of the programming language. You need to know other functionalities of that particular programming language. So if you take any programming language, there is a fundamental thing, basic thing, primary thing called data items. That's a general term, data items, which is also called variables. Variables, it is nothing but a memory location. For example, what we're going to do is, if you take, it's a storage, it's a memory location, it's a storage, computer's memory, just like your memory. Like, let's assume we have a cardboard box like this. We use a cardboard box to store things, don't we? And we will see both cardboard boxes what I'm drawing are same size, okay, right? We will put two labels on these cardboard boxes. First cardboard box we will say A, second cardboard box we will say B. Okay, cardboard box A, cardboard box B. Now I told you why we use these cardboard boxes, because usually, you know, at home also you put old items, maybe books, papers and all inside cardboard boxes, and you store them, right? Store them, that's the word that you use. So in order to store them, you use that. So I'm going to store 5 apples inside this box. 5 apples, okay? So rather than drawing all the fives, you are not kiddies, so I'm just going to write the count. 5 apples I'm going to store there, and inside the B box I'm going to store 10 apples. I'm going to store 10 apples. So A box have 5 apples, B box have 10 apples. Okay, right. So now see, this is inside a room. Okay, let's assume this is inside a room. Now inside the room, if you keep a cardboard box, that cardboard box takes some space, isn't it? It allocates some space. Inside that you have kept 5 apples. Another cardboard box is kept in another place inside the room, and it is having 10 apples inside that. Is that clearly understood now? Put all of your hands down. Right. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to ask you very simple maths question, right? Okay. Now if I ask you, what is the total number of apples, if you add the number of apples in A box and add the number of apples in B box, how many? Keep your mic open, quickly answer, otherwise it will take too long. How many?
15.
15.
15 above.
15.
Who is that beatboxing? It's going like that. Who's beatboxing? Someone's mic is giving some sound like that. Okay. Let's see. I think it's Mahdi's ones. Okay, let's keep other microphones unmuted. Mahdi, your microphone has a problem. Right, now answer. Mahdi, you go to the chat window, be ready. When I say type the number, right, okay. Total number of apples, how many?
15.
15. Very good, right? Okay. Um, if you add 5 more apples to box A, if you add 5 more apples to box A, how many apples will be there in apple A? Oh, sorry, box A. 10,
10.
right? 10,
10.
right? Okay, fine. Right, fine. So this cardboard box concept, I think you understand. I think this cardboard box thing, you do understand that. So I just took this example because, children, in real life we make use of these cardboard boxes in order to store things. So just like that, now we will take a small different example. A small example, right? I'll clear this thing. Right. Now, not only we use cardboard boxes. If you take your inside your head, right? Inside your head, right? We have the important part. What is that? Important part.
Brain.
Of course, we do have the brain, right? So, in the brain, we have a part. We don't know where it is. I don't know. If you biologically, if you know, let me know. We have a short time memory, right? Can you keep your mics muted, please, children? Right. You have a short time memory. Short time memory means area where, like for example, like where you temporarily remember things, right? So we're going to make use of that temporary memory now, and we're going to do a small exercise. I'm going to tell you a person's detail. Let's say this is, I'm not going to write anything, okay? I'm going to say 3 things about him, right? His name, his age, and his address. Okay, name, age, and address. Okay, right. These are the 3 maybe cardboard boxes. These are the things that you're going to store the values. Now I'm going to say, you be ready to remember. You're going to store them. You are the computer now. You're going to store them in these 3 boxes. Let's assume there are 3 cardboard boxes in your head, and they are labeled as name, age, and address. And I'm going to say name of that person is Sam. Name is Sam. Age is 20. Name Sam. Age is 20. Address is Candy. Okay, I hope you stored it. You stored it. Now keep your microphones unmuted quickly. I'm going to ask you a question. Right, what is his age?
20.
20.
Where is he from?
Candy.
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 What is his name?
Sam.
Sam.
Sam. Okay. How old he will be after another 10 years?
30.
30.
30.
How old was he 10 years back?
10.
10
10.
years. 12 years. 10 years. Okay. Right. Is he closer to Kegol or is he closer to Jaffna?
Kegel.
Right. How do you do all these things? How are you telling all these things? How do you do all the other operations? Because children, when you, especially the last one you did, or if I ask you how old he will be after another 10 years, aren't you using the value in your brain that you stored for the age? Age is a label, isn't it? Age is, if you think it's a cardboard box exactly residing inside your brain, you remember a value under a box or a place called age, and you remember the value 20. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Then when I ask you to do something or when I ask you to perform something, you are taking that value and you are doing it and you are using it. Is that correctly understood?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So computer, now mute your this one. Now computer programs are also like that. Computer programs are set of instructions and they use these memory locations. So when you feed information, when you give an input, these memory locations are used to remember them. So for example, when you type the first number, enter number 1, I ask you to remember name, age, address carefully. Listen children. Then I said name, remember Sam. Age, remember 20. Address, remember Candy. When I say the word remember, I'm asking you to store that. I'm asking you to keep it permanently stored there. It will be used again. Am I correct? Yes. Then I asked some questions based on those memory locations. You were able to answer them. You were able to do small calculations because you were able to access those memory locations in your brain actually. That is why the reason you correctly answered my questions. Right, same like that, the computer program is also a set of instructions. By the time the program runs, all these instructions along with these data items, along with these variables, along with these memory locations, they are inside the computer's memory. And when you input values, when you feed values to the computer, it can be stored in those areas or in those locations, and when you want to perform an operation or a calculation, it can be perfectly taken back and it can do the operations. Is that clearly understood children?
Yes.
There's a call coming.
Yep.
Please excuse me. I was explaining about this and I was explaining about the memory locations and how important it is to store them in these places, and it is very important for the computer to access those memory locations once again and use them in the programs, right? So that is what this program is about. Now if you again from top to bottom, if you read, you will better understand. Now we ask the program to start, we ask the user with the label to input a number, then this will be stored in a memory location. When I say the memory location, it's easy for you to remember like a cardboard box with the label NUM1 pasted on it. So what he types, if he types 50, it will be put inside that box. Then we ask another instruction, we give another instruction, enter the second number. Then he types 100, then put another cardboard box with the label NUM2 and put 100 there. So now you have two boxes with two different values. Now when you ask the user to do, when you ask the computer to do these operations, simply you have seen this plus mark many times even from grade 3, like you are doing these calculations. So num1, first cardboard box, what is the number? 50. Second card box, what is the number? 100. 50 plus 100 is equal to 150. So 150 will be stored in another box called tot, right? So you are adding all the mangoes in box A, box B to a box called box C. All the mangoes you are adding to a box C. So box C will have 10 plus 5, it is 15. 15 mangoes, 15 apples will be there. So you can do this. So I'm going to demonstrate this program with a Java program. After that, I'm going to give you a program you're going to write using a pseudocode, something like this. The task is already set in Edmodo. I'm going to show you that in Java. Please observe this. Right. For this exercise, we will take a new new program. Okay, file new Java class. I call this one as var demo. Now children, in this line the program is starting. So I'm going to do a small thing now. I'm going to write something called scanner, scan new scanner. I think last week I told you about that carpenter story and everything. I'll show you how to code like this. Right, so I'm going to say we're going to give this label first, children. Now you understand this. Sorry, this one we're going to say input enter number 1 here, comma, that memory location we are getting the value also. So in Java you can't do this one in just one line, you have to do this one in 2 lines. See, this is how it's done. So I'm going to say S out, this is the label I'm going to print on the screen. So I'm going to instruct the user enter number 1, okay, like this. So the user knows what to do. I'm going to say int n1 is assign the value, scan next int. This is the way you take the input. So when you say in pseudocode input num1, that is what I have written in line number 12 here. Input n1, or I'll take the same variable names num, okay, right. Then you can again say s out. You can ask the user enter no2. Then the instructions are very clear. What the user should do, it's very clear. Right, so we are reading 2 values from the keyboard. Then now the user has typed the first value and the second value. I'm going to execute this in a while. Int tot is assigned the value, num1 is added with num2. Then you can give the output. This is the program. Full program is this much. This is in Java, okay? So all the necessary instructions are there. They are input num1 in pseudocode. In Java, 2 lines need to be done. We have to give the label in 1 line, and we have to get the input in another line. So it's been done. Program is ready. Let's execute this and see how it's run. Shift F6. So it's wait for the user to enter the number. Now remember, when I type number 25, computer is going to create a memory location called, it's going to call what? It's going to create a memory location called NUM. It is a cardboard box. It's going to put that 25 there. And it's asking for the second number. I'm going to type 75 now. Now it's going to create NUM2, second cardboard box. And it's going to store the value 75 in that. After storing those 2 values in those 2 boxes, it's going to, I'm just using the word boxes for you, easy to understand, okay? It's actually the memory location, the variables. These values going to get added with each other, and the output is produced. Once more, we will run this. Shift F6. We will run this time easy numbers. 5 plus 3. Answer will be 8. Again we are running. Let's assume this time 125 is added with 25. Answer should be 150. Easy as that. Okay? Right. So that's how the program is functioning. Okay. Yeah, it is a simple program, but please don't underestimate the power of this one, because the question that I gave you asked to input two numbers and multiply them together. If you take, for example, a person works for a company for a particular number of hours and the company pays him per hour 2000 rupees, means if you want to find the gross wage means without any deductions, number of hours multiplied by hourly rate, that is the formula. So one number is multiplied by another number. First you input the rate, second you input the number of hours, then those two things are getting multiplied, answer is displayed. Another example, a person walks into a shop, buys a particular product, number of products, for example 5 kilos of rice he is buying, 1 kilo of rice is 200 rupees. I'm not joking, it's going to be 200 rupees in future quickly. So 1 kilo of rice is going to be 200 rupees. So quantity is 5, price is 200. Quantity multiplied by price, multiply two numbers and display the answer. That is the formula that you're using. Simple programs can solve complex things, so try to understand the basics properly and try to use them. So small things, if you solve them, you can solve big problems. So step by step, you have to approach this and do the tasks. So these are tiny programs, and I will be giving moderate level tasks after this. I want you to first practice the pseudocode syntax and keywords and things properly first, one or two questions, then we can do little bit tough questions than this. Okay, all of you quickly write down this question in your book, and you should upload this answer to the Edmodo. Okay, so I think you can see the screen. While I'm typing, you can take it down. Write a program to enter a number from the keyboard, find and display the cube value of that number. So I'm not going to tell you what is cube value. I want you, if you do not know what is the cube value, please find it in the internet. So I want you to do that part also. A self-learning part I'm giving you. So if you do not know what is the cube value of a number, it's a very simple thing, right? I can tell you the formula, I can tell you what it is, but I'm not doing that because I want you to find out. This is the question number 2 that you're doing. Question number 1 you already did. I will post this in Edmodo shortly. You can do that. You can submit the answers for that question as well. Right. Question number 3. Please do them because you are weekend batch. I'm asking you to do the questions at your time, not in the lecture time. So we will make use of that 30 hours. So actually another 26 hours will be remaining after today's session finishes. Okay. We have a target to complete. Right. Right. Again, same thing. Write a program to enter quantity purchased and unit price. Write a program to enter means from keyboard, okay? Quantity purchased and unit price. Find and display the amount to pay. Question number 4. Do them all following the same syntax. Write a program to enter hours worked and hourly rate for an employee who had worked for a company. The company pays, okay, no need, work for a company, right? Find and display the gross wage. Find and display the gross wage of that employee. If you did the question that I gave you now, first question, you are almost fit to do all these questions. All these three questions following the same pattern. Only thing I'm expecting your syntax, alignments, white spaces, and proper use of variable names. Those are the things I'm checking in all these programs. So make sure that you properly improvise yourself and you get the job properly done, right? I'm going to I'm going to use this one. I'm going to use this one, uh, which means I will post this one in the Edmodo. So please post your answers there, so we can have the discussion. So because children, now most of the time I'll be there in the Edmodo. So when I have a time, I can just go through that one and I can give you a comment. So you don't have to wait till the next week to check everything. Okay. For these questions, I'll be setting the deadline as let's say tomorrow or maybe tonight itself. Finish them and upload. The thing is, once you properly upload them, I will be able to give my comments. Okay, we have another 15 minutes like left. We will continue with our session, right? Okay. If you do have a doubt, please talk to me, right? So let's go to the next one. So here, children, okay. So question, uh, question number 2, answer is available here, children. Write a program or pseudocode to find the cube value of 3. So here directly I have given a value. So this is another program that you're learning, which means it has the same logic, but you have to enter from keyboard. Okay, this one is we directly give a value to the computer and ask it to remember, which means we are not asking the user to input. See, in this program there is no input command. So we write a statement like this: m is assigned the value 3. M is assigned the value 3. That means if you have a cardboard box, we ask the computer, okay computer, you remember the value 3 inside that box, rather than we wait for the user to enter the figure. Okay, but the problem of this program is, even if we execute this program 100 times, answer is going to be 27, because the cube value of 3 is 27, because same number is getting multiplied 3 times. Okay, in Tamil we call this one as ஒரு இலக்கத்துல மூணாம் அடுக்கு. ඒ කියන්නේ සිංහලෙන් අපි කියනවා ඒක number එක තුන්වෙනි බලය. So that is what is called the cube value is, right? So if you enter 3 into 3 into 3, 3 into 3 is 9, 9 into 3 is 27. Answer will come like that. Okay, so the other instructions I think you can understand. Here you can see display, this is a label and the answer is displayed and the program is stopped. So the logic only you are changing a little bit and doing. So in future I can explain you some other things also, like for example a Fahrenheit value can be converted to Celsius, Celsius value can be converted to Fahrenheit, miles can be converted to kilometers, then milliliters can be converted to liters, right? Vice versa. Those kind of things we can do. Alright. You can enter a person's height and weight and you can find the BMI, body mass index. You can find a lot of things you can try all these programs now you can try. Okay, since we discussed this one, children, in your book leave a small space to write down this. Please write down this after my session finishes. Leave a space, let's continue, don't write it down. Okay, right. Next one, children, actually I'm teaching you pseudocode syntax also. So you can see here this question version 2 I have given. See, it's a small thing changing. So what I want to tell you is, in pseudocode, because we say this arrow mark to the left side which says store or move 3 into m, which means if you have a box, if you have 3 outside, we ask, okay, move 3 into the box, put it inside the box. So this is also a syntax that we do. Anyway, we won't be able to type this in Java, so that is why I prefer you follow this syntax. But remember, in pseudocode writing like this is totally fine. In the final answer, on the final assignment, if you do your pseudocode like this, I will not reduce any marks. This is exactly same as this one, right? And you can see the third line, it is a little bit more descriptive. You can use a word like find, calculate. Those kind of words also you can use, but it's not a must, because we're going to implement it in Java like this. I prefer this syntax because this syntax is more closer to the real instruction. So we could do it from here as well, right? Right, then it says display the cube value. That part is obvious. All the information what I'm speaking with you is given in the slide, children. So if you want, you can just read them and refer that, because it serves as a note. So these slides are there, so you don't have to write notes also. That time is also been saved. So I'm using as much as possible the discussion, demonstration, and I'm asking you to write the codes. Right, let's go to the examples. Now this part is writing if conditions. I prefer not to start this one today. But since we have around 10 minutes left, I think I can give it a start. No worries, let's start trying this one. Okay, so the second one, children, now we are learning write a program to find and display pass or fail when the mark is entered from the keyboard. Actually we are learning control flow statements. So in this one I'm teaching you something called indentation. It says pay attention to the syntax. Syntax means the way how I code that. Right, how I code that. So you can see here we ask the user to input someone's marks, enter marks. So he enters from the keyboard. I can code this and show you now. Enter the marks from the keyboard, and the entered marks is going to checked. So you know, when you write programs, you need to make decisions also. Here you can say pay attention to the syntax and indentation for control flow statements, control constructs. So when you write if conditions, while loops, select cases, try catch blocks, you have to do an indentation of the code like this. I think this is not the place for us to write this code in, because I will ask you to do that. Sample question 3 it says. Okay, we will be doing this one as well. So when you want to make decisions, you can write if, which means you're going to decide whether to do this or whether to do this one. I will simply ask you, let's try a program. I will take the same thing. Let's say we're going to type something like this. Start the program. So we ask the user to input the marks. So it's a marks. So we're going to say display pass, display fail, stop. So this is the style that you were following earlier. Actually this is called a sequence. Sequence means programs are getting executed in the same order they are written or typed. So the problem here is, when you sit for an exam, you get a marks, and the marks you need to check. Let's say the pass marks is 50. Anybody who scores 50 or above only pass. Who scores less than 50 will be fail. So please make sure if you run this program, output will come as pass and fail. When you sit for the exam, you are pass as well as fail, or you are fail as well as you can pass. That won't happen. See, I will demonstrate that in this program. So if you say according to the program I have written there, this is how I can code. Now program is starting here. we ask the user to input the marks here, and we print pass, we print fail. Actually, we should print pass or fail, right? So when you run this, output will come. Okay, enter marks. Let's say I enter 80, pass and fail. It's wrong. It is totally wrong. Again, I'll type. I get the marks 25, pass and fail, right? It should not happen like that. So what we should do is, we should write something like control flow statement. So when you write control flow statements, you usually indent the code. So now this is the line that we are following here. This is the line, the indent line is there. So I'm going to push this to the right side. I'm going to type if, going to put open brackets, and we'll say entered marks if it is more than or equals to 25. I think in grade 6 you are learning this one. I'm not sure what you're calling it in English, but in Tamil you say encode, you are learning, right? Encode from 0, right side you are moving plus numbers going, left side you are going minus numbers going. So is greater, is less, they will teach you. Grade 6 in maths you have, right? Okay, so then what you do is, if it is so, we can print pass, else otherwise we can print fail. So this is the exact way to write the code. Here, rather than writing the code in children, you are learning the syntax. Syntax in the sense, the style of the code. See, I am indenting. So under this instruction, when a control flow statement comes, like if condition comes, we leave, you are using square rule books. So two blocks you leave, 2 boxes you leave. Then you start the if condition like that. How to write the if conditions and all, I will teach you later. So slowly you will learn that. So if you say, if it's a condition, if, in order to express the condition, we will have to make use of these operators as well, is greater than, is less than. But it is a simple one I wrote here, so I will keep it straight and explain it simply for you. If the entered marks is more than 25, so not 25, it should be 50, okay? 50, we will be displaying pass, otherwise fail. Now let's run this program and see. Now this program, it's going to make a decision. When you input a marks in line number 11, it comes to line number 13 and it is going to represent. Now I'll type the marks as 80. So when I press the enter key, marks variable box, it gets the value 80. It is stored there 80. So whenever I say the word marks to the computer, it is going to relate that to the value 80. So it is equivalent, or it is same as writing 80 is greater than or equal to 50. 80 is greater than or equal to 50. Is that correct? 80 is greater than 50. Is that correct, children?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Oh, it is correct. So
Yes,
condition
sir.
එක true ne putala, right? Condition is true. So what's going to happen is, this instruction will be executed. This will be skipped. ඒකට තමයි අපි control flow statements කියන මම චුට්ටක් explain කරන්න මේක ඊගාව class එකේ පටන් ගත්තාම, right? මට තව විනාඩි 5ක් දෙන්න මේක class එක ඉවර කරලා දෙන්නම් ඕගලන්ට. So this part is the place where you are making the decision. So this is how you write a decision making statement in Java. So it is not so different from your pseudocode. I'm going to write that in the pseudocode. See, if, then writing brackets is not a must, but we are using Java programming language. I prefer you write. You can say if. You say marks, entered marks is greater than or equal to 50. In pseudocode we have to write then. You say else, you say end if. Inside this, you can do this. Same code we have written, same code. Enter the value from the keyboard. We check whether the mark is more than or equals to 50. If so, we display the pass. Otherwise, else we display fail. So මේ දෙකෙන් එකයි කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්නේ. Out of this, only one can be done, not both. Under any circumstance, both cannot be done. It is a decision making statement. If this is correct, this will be done. If it is not correct, else part will be done, provided that you have written else part. There are ways you can write without else also. I will show them later. Okay, so that's how it goes. Right, let's take a look at this, and now we will execute this and see Shift F6. Now I am going to type a number 75. 75, is that greater than 50? Should we get a pass
Yes.
or should we get a fail now?
Pass.
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 Exactly. We get the pass now. Let's try another one. We will type 25 is less than what?
50.
50. So
Okay.
should be
Fail. Fail.
Fail.
very good. Very good. Now if I type 50, will he be passed or failed?
Pass.
Pass. The reason is greater than or equals to 50. Very good. Right. Now this program is not perfect. In future we will fix. Let's say for a subject maximum you can score is 100, right? Minimum
Yes.
you can score is 0. If you do nothing you will get 0. So in order to get a 0 marks, you have to do nothing, right? So what I'm going to say is, you want to type the mark as 15, accidentally you pressed a 0 and your mark became 150. Still this is a pass. Okay, this is a pass,
Yes.
but actually this is a logical error in your program, which means it is accepting a value which is more than 100. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes. So the
Yes.
program is not perfect. So we will fine tune in the upcoming class. My uh, question to you and my query to you is, did you understand the concept first of all?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
First of all, the concept is
Yes,
we have control
yes,
flow
sir.
statements. Control flow statements. When we are working with the control flow statements, we have to first of all indent them. That is one thing we learned. Number two, we slightly learned, or we little bit we learned. Next week I'm going to start here the lesson, if conditions. When you have control flow statements such as if condition is a type of a control flow statements. When the computer's program flow comes to this place, children, the computer is going to decide whether I should execute the line number 14, which is a pass, or I should execute the line 17, which is this one. Is that clearly understood?
Yes.
Right, very nice. So if you, yeah, Puta, tell me. Yunus, do you have a doubt, Puta?
No, sir.
All right. So that is the lesson that we have to do today. So based on this one, I might give you another question in the, yeah, in the Edmodo, right? So I'm going to
Okay, sir.
conclude the class by a small recap once again. My sessions are like that. Starts with the recap, do the lesson, recap, find off, right? Okay, I'm going to post the recording now. The recap is going on, children. So actually after you find the solution for the problem in the design, you can implement it using the code and implement part, which means you use a real programming language to do the coding. You convert that design into a working program. So once that's done, you need to make sure, because in the analysis stage we found out what were the users requirements, what actually the customer is requiring, asking. So we need to make sure we have built the correct system. So if you do a testing against this user system requirement, you can say that yes, I have built the correct system, my system is fulfilling all the users requirements. If you do the testing only, you can tell that. Number two, any system that you develop can still have errors in it, so you need to find and fix those errors. So testing need to be done, so you can fix or minimize the number of errors. You can't say 100% error free, because there can be hidden errors anyways, but you can still fix up to a certain level, because the testing process in a real development company, it has a particular time period also. So during that time period you have to get it done as well. Right, finally the stage is review and maintenance. After you implement the system in the real working environment, the user's requirement might change with the time. So if the requirement changes, or if you come across any existing bugs, or if improvements need to be done to the system, review and maintenance is a stage where you're going to do that. So when you do that review and maintenance, the word review says you have to go all the way, all these steps once again you have to go, starting from analysis, design, code and implement, then test. All these things need to be done, then only you can successfully incorporate that change or modification into the existing system. So that's the discussion that we had on the software development lifecycle, and I uploaded a note set for you, software development lifecycle.pdf. Please download that from the Edmodo classroom. Then children, we talked about the design. Of course we discussed about this, no need to go again. We talked about pseudocode, our lesson today, to make you able to write pseudocodes. So I was generally slowly explaining you what a pseudocode is. It is not real code. It has syntax, it has control structures, it should be simple, it should be concise, right? Those kind of things were there. Then what you should do and what you should not do, we discussed, right? If you want, you just rewind the video and see, it is there in the video, it is getting recorded. Then we started doing examples. The idea was not to teach you any maths or not to teach you any real programs. This task is just to make you familiarized with how to write pseudocodes properly. What parts should be there? What keywords do we use? What instructions what do we use? What naming convention should we use? Should we use a space? Why we use a space? It is not correct. Can't we start with a number? Can we start with a number? Can we use symbols? No, you can't use symbols, right? So how to print a label, right? How to get an input, how to get the output, and how to stop the program. These are the main things that you learned rather than the adding two numbers. Those are the things that we learned for the pseudocode, right? Then we did some simple question. I did the adding part, you people, most of you did correctly the multiplication part. Then I gave you another 3 questions. Then we did this part is one of that, cube value, assignment operator, and this arrow mark difference I explained you using the find, and without using that also we did. Finally we started this. We didn't do this one actually. I didn't ask you to take down. Even after my class finishes, please copy down this notes into your book, okay? This one and this one, copy down please in your book, right? So control flow statements will make a decision. So this is the place where we are starting the class next week. Meanwhile there are questions, please do them and post them. Okay, I hope you understand the lesson. So I'm going to conclude the class from here, children. So see you in the next class. Have a nice day and stay home and stay safe. Bye.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
Abdallah, right. See you. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.